bucket list expert. Bucket List Life's mission is to help you get off the treadmill, stop Groundhog Days, hack your habits, and live a regret-free life. Because we know life's way too short not to live your bucket list life. So please welcome your host, Trav Bell, the Bucket List Guy.
Hey, bucket listers. Welcome to another episode of the Bucket List Life podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in once again. What an awesome episode we've got for you. I've been really looking forward to chatting with Nick. I tell you what, talk about a bucket list life. Dude, welcome to the Bucket List Life podcast. How are you, mate?
I'm doing well, Trav. Thanks so much for having me.
Now, straight up, first of all, guys, welcome to the Bucket List Live podcast. Two, if you're watching this live, because we are streaming it live, feel free to comment. We'd love to, we can put some of those comments up on the screen. But mate, I ask this of every host, I'm the host, of every guest. Mate, you have traveled around the world. You've done a bunch of crazy things, and we'll get into that in a second. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around what you actually do, but I really do appreciate it. When we used to fly, when we used to fly in these things called planes pre-COVID, we would have to fill out an incoming passenger card and put our occupation on that passenger card, right? So what do you put on your passenger card?
So that's a great question. That's a head scratcher for me too. And more often than not, I just put athlete because it's just the easiest. And then when you get to customs and the customs guards, ask you questions, you just be like, well, I'm a professional athlete. I travel around going kayaking and doing stuff. And then they kind of get it. Yeah. Otherwise, before that, I don't even know what I would put. Maybe like whitewater kayaker or professional kayaker and different things like that. And they would just be like, what are you doing? Like, what are you talking about? Yeah.
So you are a professional sponsored whitewater kayaker. And this is not just, I wish we could maybe screen share or something, some of your footage, mate. It's next level. You throw yourself off waterfalls and land it, hopefully, and you're still here today, so you've done that successfully. Mm-hmm. And where most of us are like holding our genitals and going, no, dude, don't do that. And you seem to get a kick out of doing that. And plus, you've got like 18 GoPros strapped to you, so we get it from every fucking angle. And your YouTube, straight up, what's your YouTube? Your YouTube channel?
I think it's Nick Troutman or Nick Troutman Kayak. I'd have to go back and check. I did YouTube first, so it might actually just be Nick Troutman, and then and then when I got on like Instagram and stuff like that later on, I think I changed it to Nick Troutman Kayak, so it's a little bit easier for people to kind of like search and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Ironically, I guess I live the life that you kind of preach about, the bucket list life, and honestly, I still wake up every day and kind of pinch myself and realize that I'm just like extremely grateful for the life that I live. And essentially, I kind of, really am living the dream life in the sense that I remember still very vividly at maybe 13, 14, thinking like, oh man, wouldn't it be cool? That's like when I got into kayaking, when I first started learning, and I just got like super addicted to the sport right away. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool to one day be like a professional kayaker? And
was that even a thing with you growing up? Whereabouts in the world are you? Where are you based?
So right now I'm at home in Rock Island, Tennessee, but I grew up in the Ottawa Valley in a really small town called Beachburg, Ontario, beside the Ottawa River up in Canada.
Right.
And when I got into kayaking, There were some professional kayakers for sure, and some role models. And actually, one of my biggest role models, ironically, now is my father-in-law. And so, I mean, there's a whole difference. I mean, we can go deep down that story, but yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I think when we talked, I had you on my podcast earlier, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, but just like the law of attraction and different things like this. And I didn't really like know of this stuff when I was a kid, but I just had these like dreams, and I've always been very like goal oriented. And I mean, life just kind of worked out exactly how I wanted it to. It's been pretty cool.
Yeah. You can tell you're a Canadian too, mate, by your about and out, and these sort of So when did you catch the bug? Did father-in-law go, hey, let's go for a family picnic, and while we're at, we'll go for a little whitewater raft after this, and he took you off a few waterfalls, and you went, oh, this is mad, and let's get into this, and I want to go off solo. How did you get into it?
I got into it earlier than that, before I had a father-in-law. I was I think I was 14 when I first started to kayak, and my best friend at the time, we did everything together. We played hockey and snowboarded and skateboarded and all that kind of fun stuff. And one summer he was like, hey man, I'm probably not gonna be able to hang out with you too much because I'm gonna go learn how to do kayaking at my father's whitewater kayak school.
Right.
His dad owned the largest whitewater rafting company on the Ottawa River and kayak school on the Ottawa River. And I was kind of like, oh, bummer, man. We're not going to hang out all summer, because we spent like a lot of time together. And he was like, well, you can come try it with me. And I was like, okay, cool. And at that time in life, I mean, I thought of kayaking probably what most people think: long, pointy boats that just like meander downstream.
Yeah.
And so I show up, and immediately I'm just like shock and awe with these short freestyle kayaks that are doing flips and tricks and surfing and all this stuff. And I was just like blown away. And being that I was into skateboarding and snowboarding and kind of that was like the rise of like the extreme sports and like freestyle and all this stuff. And so I immediately just fell in love with the sport of kayaking, and it's all I would think of, all I would talk about. I mean, I was like addicted. I'm sure I made all my teachers go crazy in high school and just everything, because it's all I would ever talk about.
If you weren't an extreme kayaker, what do you think you'd be?
I mean, it's almost hard for me to say, because it's such a different, like, I was going on that path. You know what I mean? Like, before going to high school, I was thinking like, oh, maybe I'll be like an architect or an engineer or a designer of some sort. I want to move into the big city. I want to live in the high rise. I want to live the big city life. Do you know what I mean? Because I was coming from small town, like, farm country. And then I got into kayaking and started traveling the world and going to all these amazing places, but like super remote, like way off in the jungles where, a lot of people still haven't been to some of these locations. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're in canyons and rivers that most people don't get to go see. Yeah. And I immediately realized, like, no, I don't want to go live in the city. Like, this is the life that I want to do. And I just followed that life. So I
can't see you as an accountant, mate. I can't see you middle management, working for a big company, middle management, wearing the tie, 9 to 5, hating their life. I can't see it.
I don't know. It's a foreign idea. I mean, like, I still love doing different things, and I'm involved like in some different business stuff. And as of recently, I've gotten pretty interested in real estate as well. And so I've got like, different things kind of going on, but to say like, what would you do if you weren't a kayaker? It would be different if it was like, as of right now, if something drastically happened and for some reason I could no longer kayak, I've got so many things and so much experience of the world that I could, continue on my life.
It could translate pretty easy. Yeah.
But if I was to go back to, the 14-year-old version of me, and just like something was to realign and I never found kayaking, man, it's like the movie, The Butterfly Effect. Like, it would be a whole different life that I would be living, for sure.
Yeah. I absolutely love it. And talk about, living your passion. It's like the Holy Grail, right? Like, you sort of, like me as well, like I was just telling someone this morning, and I didn't really know her, and she asked, "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "Well, the last 10 years I've been running around the world as the bucket list guy." What? That's a job? What is that? I said, well, I created it, and like I guess that's just, and people pay me to speak about this philosophy of life, and really, how can I get into that? Well, I guess it's kind of unique, and it's. And that's what it is for you. It's like it's pinch yourself sort of stuff, and you're always reminded of that when you come across people, aren't you?
Yeah.
Of like, you do that full time. Like, people pay you to do that. Like, back to truck up. How? When did it get serious for you? When do you go from, you know what, I love running down the river, I love jumping off, kayaking off some of these waterfalls. When did you become professional?
So, I mean, technically, like, I still, same thing like you, I still pinch myself, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't believe people, call me a professional and pay me to do what I love to do or whatever. But
just do it anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. But for me, I guess it started right after high school and out of high school. So probably like around 18. And again, I had great mentorship with my now father-in-law. And he's 4-time world champion. I mean, he's kind of like, he has paved the road for, becoming turning kayaking into a profession. He would travel around with his family in an RV for 7 years straight, competing, doing all this kind of stuff, when the sport of kayaking really wasn't that big. It's not like when people, when you tell people, oh, I'm a professional athlete, they think of like NBA, basketball, football, all that kind of stuff, like rolling in like big money, sponsorship deals, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, no, that's not it. It's for the most part, pretty small income, but you're doing what you love to do. And essentially the gist of it is, no one would do what I do for the amount that I get paid unless you love doing it. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not sure if it's the same for you or not, but when you find something that you just love to do, and someone's willing to pay you anything for it, you're like, this is sweet. I'm going to just chase this dream. I'm going to chase it as far as I can and see how far we can go down this rabbit hole. I've
got this, I've always said, when I'm interviewed on podcasts, if you weren't doing what you're doing, what would you be doing? I was like, I can't even fathom that, but I guess I'd love to be a professional surfer. Like, I've grown up surfing. We've got this thing called ability getting in the way. That's a whole other conversation, but, and what I've taken out of what you just said too, mate, is I've got to, in order to do that though, I've got to get a new dad. That's what I've got to get. I've got to get a new father. I'll get rid of the one. I'll try and find an ex-world champion, 4 times world champion surfer that we could hook up with the family and see how we. No, that might help.
I mean, I think more than anything, almost, I'd say that it's not so much that you like, it needs to be your dad or whatever, but to have that mentor or coach or anything, like it could just be just knowing, like, if you wanted to be a professional surfer and you were like, maybe Kelly Slater happens to be your neighbor and you live by the beach, you're way more likely to kind of follow Kelly Slater's footsteps if you could ask him for advice. If you could be like, hey, Kelly, like, obviously, I mean, it goes back to the skill part, but that's just time in.
I mean, it really does go back to the skill part. But Kelly Slater can't give me all the advice that he knows to make me
Of course. But I mean, anybody can put in the 10,000 hours or whatever. Yeah. Like, I mean, you're never going to become number one in a short amount of time.
But the takeaway really for maybe some of the younger crew watching is get around people. Look at your circles. If you love hearing what Nick has done, if you like hearing what anyone has done, use them as a role model. Be mentored. Be open to be coached by them. Ask them for help. And I think getting out of the way, fear of embarrassment might come up. Like overcome that fear and seek mentors, seek coaches, seek people, and that really does collapse those time frames between where you are now and where you want to be, right? And I don't I feel that a lot of people don't, allow themselves to ask and have the courage to ask, get out of your comfort zone and ask for that help, for sure. So did your, do you, because your jump, I don't know if there's a technical term, but what do you do? What is the term when you throw yourself off a waterfall in a very small kayak / canoe, whatever that thing is called? What is it called? Launching, sending it? I know it's sending is the.
Yeah, I mean, people say sending it all the time, but we call it like running a waterfall.
Running.
There you go. And then there's different techniques for, like how you want your angle to go off the drop and stuff like that. But if you're just going over it, you call it like you're running the waterfall. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And so over time, you go off bigger ones. Is that the progression? Just like a surfer, bigger and bigger waves?
Yeah.
Is that how it kind of works?
Yep.
What mountain, what waterfall do you yet have to conquer?
Oh, gosh. I mean, there's a lot. I haven't broke the 100-foot barrier yet for waterfalls. And that's been something that I've been wanting to do. It's been broken by, a lot of other people. The record, I think, is 186. And so 100 feet seems pretty small in comparison. But that was a big goal of mine for a couple of years now. And through my lifetime.
So just for us in metric terms, 100 feet is 30 and a half meters.
Yep.
All right. Check that out, guys. Okay. That's ridiculous, man. So what's the highest you've gone? What's the highest you've gone off?
Mine's like 80 something.
80 something, like what is it?
I didn't actually measure the highest one that I did. I mean, it could be, I don't know. We all just call it like 80 feet. It could be 82. It could be 79. I'm not 100% certain, to be honest.
25 meters. So that's 25 meters, bro. So that's that's ridiculous too. I mean, that's 25 meters. That's a length of a small swimming pool for us. And how big are your kayaks?
The ones that we go off are probably around 8.5 feet. So that would be not quite. No, it'd be like 2 meters and a bit.
Now, I've sat down with the kids. I've got two 14-year-old boys, probably not the best after dinner watching that, because everyone went to bed all hyped up and like, I can do that. It's like, no, I don't. He's a professional athlete. We don't own any kayaks, guys. So let's just peg it back. But dude, how do you land that? What's the technique of landing that? It's not soft.
Well, no, so yeah, I mean, it can be soft, and you're hoping for a soft landing, but you're right. You could go wrong too. The higher waterfalls, you want to kind of like pencil in. So you want your bow to drop, and then you'll tuck forward, and you're going to try to be as streamlined as possible so that to minimize the impact.
So you're trying to do a pin drop.
Exactly. If you on a smaller drop or on waterfalls that are shallow, you do what we call like a boof, where you kind of go out and you try to land flat, but you wouldn't want to do that on a big waterfall because you'll break your back.
Yeah. And imagine what's the gnarliest? I mean, people would have broken backs, I'm sure, because waterfalls are so damn unpredictable.
Yeah.
Well, they are predictable for you, but unpredictable for everyone else.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the beauties of kayaking for me is whitewater kayaking. It doesn't just have to be waterfalls, all rapids, surfing waves, anything like that. It's very unpredictable and it's always changing. I regularly say, like, the only constant in kayaking is that there is no constant. Like every time, because water is it's just the way that it reacts, it's always going to be different. So you might run the same rapid or the same waterfall 10 times and it'll be a little bit different each time. And so you're forced into these quick decision-making moments, which is really fun for me because within that, it kind of like, it almost forces that flow state a lot more.
Oh, I tell you, and like your decision-making, and I was watching you guys, is coming down a waterfall. You know, like you got to read it off the rock, you got to read off another rock, see how it's coming together, and make a call on which way you go. And you've literally got split-second decision making, and it's like you've got to take in a lot of information, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's it blows me away, and I guess that's the same with surfing. You got to take in all the information to get a good wave.
Yeah.
So, have you injured yourself? What you know? Any injuries? Well, how long have we got, Trav?
No, I have. I guess some of the more severe injuries, I've separated both my shoulders, and I've had a couple concussions. But yeah, I mean, knock on wood, you know, we're still here. I've had some close calls that I'm lucky to learn some lessons from, I'd say. But yeah, nothing too bad.
Now, forgive me for not knowing, but is there a competition on? It's in the Olympics, isn't it?
Yeah, so it is in the Olympics. The type of kayaking that I do mainly isn't in the Olympics. So the version of whitewater kayaking, because whitewater kayaking alone has like several different kind of niche subcategories. So in the Olympics, they've got slalom kayaking where they've got gates and you gotta race through the gates.
Yeah.
Then there's extreme racing, which is kind of like slalom, but it's usually down really steep sections or rapids and waterfalls. And sometimes there's gates, sometimes it's just straight against the clock. Then there's boatercross where you race against like other people. There's freestyle kayaking where you're surfing either like a hole or a wave and doing flips and tricks. And yeah, I do a lot more of just, and then I guess there's like expedition style and just, it's more of like just running waterfalls and exploring and trying to find first ascents and stuff like that. And so,
is that the funnest part of what you do? Like just running waterfalls? Like, is that the biggest rush? Or what's where do you find your flow state? You know, what's the thing that you really look forward to the most?
So I guess two questions there. The flow state, I probably tap into the flow state a lot more running waterfalls. And I feel like for me and my personal experience, I can tap into that flow state a lot more when there is risk on the line. And the little flow state studying that I've done, because I find flow state very intriguing and I've done some research on it myself. That a lot of people say the same thing, is that the more that risk is on the line, the easier it is to tap into that flow state.
Yeah. But
now in saying that, you know, the more I put my life on the line, sometimes you're like, man, I need a break from this. Like I need to chill out. You know what I mean? Like I need to go just like surf and have fun.
Like on adrenaline, like adrenal fatigue, I guess.
Exactly. I mean, it's all good and dandy, but when, you know, you get a couple situations where stuff hits the fan and you're just like, that wasn't cool. You get put into a couple of those environments and eventually that will happen. And you're like, man, I want to take a break and just go surf. And so I also really just love freestyle kayaking. That's kind of how I got into the sport and where I grew up. Yeah. And so big wave surfing is also like really fun for me because you get some of that, you know, that extreme factor, surfing some really big waves.
Yeah.
But it's not always as risky as running some of the waterfalls and stuff.
And now, how do you perceive risk? Because how many kids you got?
I've got two. I've got a 7-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter. And so
I just want to ask, like, you bring kids into your life. How does Nick Troutman, extreme kayaker, change his perception of risk because of the kids? You know, has it changed at all? Has it not changed at all? It's like you're still sending it, no matter how many kids you got in your life. You know, how do things change?
I'd start off by saying it definitely changes, but it doesn't change the way that people told me it would. People were like, "Oh, once you have kids, you're going to stop running class 5, which is in our grades, that's like the highest level. But you're going to stop running class 5 rapids and you're going to stop running waterfalls because that's just too risky." I've still run class 5 and I still run waterfalls. Yeah. But what I do is I have zero problem walking away from it if I'm not feeling it that day. I have come to terms with the fact that like I've got to be on my A game if I'm going to like, put myself in these risky scenarios, because I know that they're risky. I've had, the life and death situations, and I've seen things happen to friends of mine and stuff that, I'd be foolish to think that it's, oh, that'll never happen to me. So I know that it's risky, but when I'm on my A game and I'm feeling it, and I've been training and I've been in the water, every day and all this kind of stuff, like, I'm on it. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And I keep going. But at that same point, like some days you're just not feeling it. And I have zero problem on those days to just be like, guys, I'm out. Like I'm off today. It's just not, or this waterfall, I scout this waterfall and I don't like it. I'm just going to walk around it today. Do you know what I mean? And so you just got to know some days, some days are good and some days just you walk away for a different day.
I mean, maybe, is it does the ego kind of take a back step when you have the kids, and you're just a little bit smarter with your decision making rather than just bravo, I'll send it on whatever you put in front of me. It's young, immature versus mature.
Yeah, and I guess that's a great way of explaining it, is that that I try not to let the ego get in the way, probably like I did maybe when I was 18, or like a lot of young athletes might do, where you take out the cameras and you get some people there and they're like, oh, sweet. Well, if everybody's filming, or if they're going to, whatever, take some photos, I'm going to run it. Of course. Like, what could go wrong? And it's just like, I now know, like, one, what can go wrong, and two, that it doesn't matter whether they're filming or not. If I'm not in that moment, I'm not going to do it. Like I actually went on a film trip to go film, not a commercial, but like I don't know. It was, they called it Fly Over Iceland or something like that. And they were doing this big production for Iceland. And we went to go film this. I think that one was maybe like 60 feet or 55 feet, something like that. A pretty big waterfall that
in Iceland.
In Iceland. Yeah. It's called Aldeafoss. It's gorgeous waterfall. Super cool.
Wow.
But it's got some consequences, and it's kind of a tricky waterfall. And I told them beforehand going there, I was like, hey guys, I'm all down to go film it and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But you have to know, I'll tell you the day of if I'm going to run it.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And so we went, and there was three different kayakers that they brought in to go film it. So they had 3 different runs and stuff like that. And I only made the decision essentially 10 minutes before I went, like, is when I made the final call. Like, okay, I'm definitely going. Yeah. And it was,
what held you back up until that point? Was it just you're not feeling it? Was it the weather, or was it like
all of the above? The combination of like analysis paralysis, fear. I mean, I call it the demons of the mind, where, negativity, negative thoughts kind of creep in slowly. They just creep in slowly, and they're like, ooh, can you make that move? What happens if you don't? And then if you start thinking of like the negative side of things, it's easy to kind of go down that rabbit hole. And then it's like, once you start thinking the negative side, it's hard to come back sometimes. And you're like,
do you have an anchor? Do you have a system? Do you have a routine, ritual to get you out of that state into a more positive one?
One, I try really hard not to get into that state. And then, which is difficult on its own. And then 2, I guess the easiest way, is to fall back on my own experiences and just know that I've got, 15 years experience. And so it's like, okay, I've got all of this, like all of this experience put into like this moment. Do you know what I mean? Where I can call on it right now. But if I'm still not feeling it, if the weather's, the weather was coming in, it was storming, like a storm was brewing as I was about to go. And I was just like, man, I don't know, like everything's kind of just like happening. But I made the decision. I was able to kind of clear my mind, and it helped. I had a buddy of mine who was at the lip, who was kind of helped coordinating with the heli that was doing the shoot and me running the drop. And he was just super calm and collective. And he gave me the thumbs up. He's like, dude, you good to go? And was just like, and that really helped kind of just center me in the moment too, where I was like, okay, yeah, man, let's do it. We're ready. And so it's kind of, I would say it's moment by moment. But a lot of it has to do with the trust of the crew that I'm with too, because in these situations, I mean, it especially the more risky situations, you have to know that you're putting your life in your friend's hands and vice versa. And so you better trust them. And when there is that trust and that bond, it's a lot easier to kind of like let go and release that trust. If you're with people.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to say, because I've watched a few of your videos online there on your YouTube channel, and you guys, like, it's not just, starting off at the start of a run of waterfalls, and it might be it might go on for half an hour or whatever it is. But you guys are literally getting out of your kayaks, sussing out the drops, sussing out the waterfall, and really calculating the hell out of it before you do any drops. So it's not just, start at one end and then finish at the other and not get out, but you're getting out, like, just looking for, what are you looking for when you're looking over these waterfalls, in particular?
I mean, the first things, you analyze the risk. And so you try to see, like, what are the hazards that are at play here? Are there rocks in the landing? Is there a log? Are there undercuts? You try to immediately figure out what are the hazards that could be just immediately turn it into a no-go. Do you know what I mean? Where you're like, I'm walking, this just doesn't look good to me. After that, then you're kind of looking at, okay, what's the river doing? What's the water kind of doing? And trying to guess, because I mean, it's constantly changing, but you're trying to guess, like, okay, if I'm here on this line, how's it going to react? You kind of play out some of the different situations of, like, well, if that wave pushes me too far to the right or too far to the left, what's going to happen? Do I have time to make it back online? All these kind of things. And you're just trying to find that line. And then also you're trying to pinpoint the markers, because you're, wherever you are scouting it, once you get into the canyon or into the gorge or into the river,
you're in.
You're in, and there is no turning back at that point. So you can't just stop and get back out and be like, well, where was I going here? And so you try to make your markers so that, like, okay, at this rock, I want to be three feet off, or at that wave, I want to hit it right on. Or when I pass this branch, I've got to be, like, positioned like this, different things like that.
Wow. And do you're sitting there, like, with five mates, and do you draw straws, as in who's going to be the guinea pig first, or do you just go, no, I'm going, and it's a race to be first?
A bit of both. Okay. So sometimes, I mean, again, it just depends on the crew that you're with, but usually you open it up and say, like, who's looking at running this? Do you know what I mean? And because not everybody's going to want to run every drop. And then once you've got the people that are like, I'm like, I'm going to do it. Then you either ask, I mean, just being polite, being like, hey, do you want to go first? Do you mind if I go first? If two people want to go first, it's pretty commonplace to do rock, paper, scissors. And that's kind of just like how we go, I guess.
Unreal. Hey, so so you're a GoPro sponsored athlete. How many sponsors are, what's the professional setup of this? How's the commercialization of this hobby that's now become the real deal? Who are you sponsored by? And I'd love to know more about what are the contractual obligations with GoPro as a major company that is supporting you as well. How many videos you have to do, and et cetera, what's your quotas? So who are you sponsored by? Give them a shout out. Not that, I don't know who's going to be watching this, but, like, who sponsors an extreme kayaker, and what's the GoPro, setup? Yeah,
I mean, so I'm sponsored by GoPro, by Jackson Kayak, which is my father-in-law's company, NRS, which is a kayak gear company. I'm actually sponsored by GMC Trucks, which is epic. They've got some seriously rad trucks. I've got a trailer that we tow behind our truck from Keystone Trailers. Fat Tire Beer, and then
hang on. That's not extreme kayaker. What's so you got an energy supply of beer too?
Yeah, they're pretty good. And then Touchstone Essentials, they make, like, supplements and stuff like that for protein powder. And I'm actually, anyway, I'm also sponsored by, like, a bike company and some different things too. We're actually in the midst of actually launching a family adventure kind of docu-series. So I've got some other sponsors that aren't necessarily like directly kayaking related. But yeah, I've got some awesome partners that are just really cool brands that I'm really, blessed to have these relationships with. As far as GoPro goes, my relationship with them is on a content delivery system where it's like you have to provide.
Mind you, sorry to interrupt there, but is this how all the GoPro athletes? Because I follow a lot of them on YouTube, obviously, and on other social media. But I'm always fascinated. Are these contracts all kind of the same?
In all honesty, pretty much everybody signs an NDA. So it's pretty rare to really like discuss them throughout the athletes. So I couldn't tell you for sure. I mean, not even for sure. I couldn't really even speak to say exactly what the different athletes have. As far as my deal goes, it's more of like you provide, X amount of footage and photos and X amount of posts and different things like that. And essentially just promote the brand in a good light. But they're very authentic about it, where they say they're not like trying to like force it down your throat. They say like, promote it the way that you like it and talk about it the way that you enjoy it and use it the way that you want. And then send us your content so that we can use it as well.
Love it. And do you have to produce a certain amount of videos per month or something like that?
Yeah, everything's pretty much on a monthly, basis.
Yeah, fantastic. And of the other sponsors, is it a mix of product and money, or just product?
Both. And it all just depends. I mean, there's a lot of different
deals.
It's like advertising. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to cut the pie up. Do you know what I mean? And so some deals are more event based, some are more, TV based, some are more social media based. So I mean, everything kind of has a different way of, or each brand has a different way of like what they find valuable and what they want you to be doing.
Life of a professional athlete, and I guess you can leverage that skill set and that following into bigger and better deals. What are some of the, without disclosing the specifics, but what are the kind of deals that you are looking at, in terms of joint ventures and that sort of thing going forward?
I mean, I guess
that you've done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty stoked with where I'm at, to be completely honest. I guess the biggest thing that I'm working on right now is this TV show that we're launching. We actually film our first episode next month, so that'll be pretty cool.
What's all that about?
Pardon me?
What's all that about?
Yeah, it's essentially. So my wife is also a professional kayaker. She's a 3-time world champion as well, and.
Right. Okay.
And we've got 2 kids, and we travel around the world usually 6 to 10 months out of the year, and just go and do rad adventures. And so that's kind of, we're doing like a bit of a docu-series where we just kind of take the family, go on the road, and do cool stuff together.
And chuck the kids off waterfalls, or what do we?
We haven't chucked the kids off any waterfalls yet, but they do both have their own kayaks, and we take them out and we run some rivers with them and stuff like that. But we're still, we're slowly introducing them into the whitewater scene.
Yeah.
As someone, I mean, my biggest fear would just be to scare them out of kayaking. Do you know what I mean? I really would love to have them fall in love with kayaking the way that I have. But I know that if I push it upon them, that they're more likely to push back, and that one bad, cold, experience could just turn them off completely. Right. So we try to make everything like a really fun experience for the kids as of right now.
That's what it's all about. Yeah. And you got to make sure that the father-in-law, grandpa, doesn't get too overzealous as well. I'm tipping too.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, we've got. It's kind of like a whole family. Like my brother-in-law, he's, 5-time world champion as well. My father-in-law is 4-time world champion. So there's a whole bunch of world champions in the family, and a whole bunch of kayaking goes on, and just rad adventures, and life's good. I mean, I can't complain. Yeah.
Unreal. Mate, tell me about the Art of Awesome podcast as well. Why did you start that? And that extends, you've been doing some speaking as well. And, where's, Art of Awesome? Tell me why you started that in the first place. It's not like you haven't got enough going on.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm definitely, I like to take on new projects always. I probably have a little bit of ADD, but yeah, The Art of Awesome. It's my podcast. I launched it, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, maybe something like that. A little over 6 months. Well, I guess we're coming up on a year. I think on Friday is our 57th episode. And the gist of it is, I really enjoy giving back. It's just part of my personality. Throughout the years, I've given a fair amount financially to different, nonprofits and stuff like that. One year I donated all of my prize money to different nonprofits. And after having kids, I realized it gets harder and harder for me to just donate financially, being that it just having kids, no matter what people say, it's more expensive than not having kids. And so I was trying to figure out how I could give back, not just with finances, not just writing checks. And so I was thinking about it, and I was like, man, I could share information, both, through experiences that I've learned, but also by bringing on people like you and just other incredible individuals and sharing their years of experience, because I think you and I are both the same. We're big into reading. And the beauty of books is that you can get decades of experience, all put into a book for you, and you can learn it in a couple of days. And then, so that's awesome. But what's even better than that sometimes is having those same decades of experience put into a quick, hour-long podcast or a conversation like this that someone can just listen to while they're, doing their dishes or going for a bike ride or whatever it is. And it's just a different way of learning and sharing and kind of giving back, maybe inspiring or encouraging others as well.
Also, on that, mate, was it, I'll just bring this up. Was it you that I told, I think that I was reading 52 books in a year?
Yeah.
And you're going to do it. Do we say that publicly, that you accept that challenge?
Man, I'll accept it. I've been, in all honesty, the 52 books has been on my bucket list for 3 years in a row now. And I haven't hit 52 yet. But I've also, I'm pretty strict on my book challenge personally. I don't include audiobooks. I don't include small books. I think it's got to be, I guess it depends on the page size. I read my kids' children's book every night. You know what I mean? But that doesn't count.
Mate, that doesn't count. Come on, Mr. Tickle, that Dr. Seuss, that does not count. You can't reading green eggs and ham 52 weeks in a row does not count. So look, join me on this journey. And this, so far, I was just showing this to someone else this morning. So far,
that's where you're at this year?
At the moment. No, I started in December. I think it was December or November. I'll get specific on those dates, but so far, unbelievable.
Nice.
I'm just putting it out there. Not that you're competitive or anything like that. I'm just saying.
I think you know how to push my buttons there, Trav.
No, mate, I'm not. I'm just saying that's what I've done. I'd love to, I'm just saying.
Yeah. Okay. The challenge is on. You've set the bar.
That's a whole other whitewater rapid right there.
Yep.
And but it's amazing the flow-on effect of just going after this challenge. And anyone who's watching, please, DM me and message me. That's how we used to say it. Yeah. Message me if you want to be in the challenge as well, because we're looking for accountability buddies. Mate, it'd be remiss of me not to ask this question. Nick, what are the top 3 things on your bucket list, mate?
The top 3 things. So after having, oh man, my journal is upstairs. I think I've got it on the start. No, this would be my goals for the year. But after having you on my podcast, I really enjoyed your bucket list challenge. and I wrote out pages of my past bucket list and the gratitude bucket list. And so on my actual bucket list, I've got read 52 books in a year. I've actually got read the Bible, which is something that I've wanted to do for some time, and I've just never.
I've actually got that on mine too.
Yeah, I've never actually done it.
And I've got read the Quran too.
Oh, cool. Okay, I might have to follow suit there and check that out. And I'm trying to think of my other. In all honesty, life is coming at me so fast that I'm actually checking off a ton. Create my own, like have my own TV show was one of them, and we're really close to checking that one off. Another one of mine is to actually to own 30 rental units and 10 short-term rental units as well. So I'm definitely trying to get into the real estate game pretty heavily. Own my own business is another one. I've kind of checked that one off. I started a coffee company like 2 years ago. And then long story short, I came up with all these, I was having a whole bunch of allergy issues, and I did all these tests, and coffee was one of the most things that I was allergic to. So I kind of had to shut that one down.
Hang on. Whoa. I'm a coffee freak. So you're allergic to coffee?
Yeah. So it's, I don't know if allergic is the right, word for it or not, but essentially it gives me a huge histamine effect, and I break out in full body hives. So, I mean, I don't know where you call allergic to it, but
that's right up there.
Anyway, it sucked for me because I was and I still am. I still would consider myself like a really big coffee fan, and I'm very into coffee, and I love the taste of coffee, and it's a big challenge of mine to kind of to turn into like tea drinking, and man, it's different, but
that would be the death of me. That would be the death of me.
Yeah,
if I could give up the coffee.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I said the same thing until the doctor kind of told me. And in all honesty, I switched onto this. We're kind of go down a rabbit hole here, but I switched onto this different diet and cut like a whole bunch of things out. And I had a whole year of like not breaking out. And I was like, man, maybe I just like cured myself. Maybe everything's good to go. And so actually right around Christmas, I just started eating everything and drinking coffee every morning again. I'm like, man, I'm totally good to go. And then I started having hives every day, a couple times a day. And I was like, oh man, I got to go back on like the no coffee and cut all this like nuts and stuff out. Anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. The coffee business only didn't last too long.
No, I kind of had to shut that down. So I'd like to start some other businesses and just, I don't know. I mean, in a lot of ways, I guess the gist of it is that I again consider myself extremely lucky and extremely grateful for the life that I live. Yeah. And I regularly have to remind myself that even though I've got all these other goals and these other dreams and stuff like that, that really like my dream and my goal and my bucket list is to continue living the life that I have. And so I've got to be careful not to try to juggle too many balls where I drop the one that I've got. Do you know what I mean? And actually another one that I wrote down for my bucket list, which I've been really active at, is to spend a minimum of 30 minutes, but mainly I'm aiming for an hour of fully focused time with my children every day. No electronics, put everything aside and just play whatever they want to play, read, go like run around in the outdoors, do whatever it is that they want to do. If they want to play video games, we go play video games, whatever. But but just kind of like I'll play Barbies with my daughter, like just put everything away and just be like, hey guys, like I'm here. What are we doing? Let's go play.
Presence someone this morning, our attention these days is our most valuable commodity that we can trade, right? Our attention, our presence. Unreal. Hey Nick, I asked this question of every guest, and that is, imagine a stadium full of people with a raised stage at the front, a big booming microphone. What would you love to say, and who do you choose to be in the audience?
Oh gosh. I know what I would love to say. I would love everybody to be in the audience, as many people that are willing to listen. And I would say for me personally, the biggest thing at 32, I think is how old I am, at 32 years old and traveling the world and all the incredible, I feel like I've lived 100 lives, like all the incredible experiences that I've had. I can really say that the biggest thing that I would like to share is gratitude. The more grateful you are, the better that life is. And the more that positive energy and the goodness comes back to you. So I would say, regardless of how hard life is for you, maybe, you're at the bottom of the barrel right now. You've been kicked to the curb. There's always somebody worse off. And you've always got something to be positive about and something to be grateful for. Maybe you've got, your vision. Maybe you've got your hearing. Maybe you've got your legs to walk. Maybe you've got a meal, or maybe you've got someone to give a hug to and someone that loves you. So there's always something to be grateful for, regardless how hard life is. And for anybody that life is good, cherish it, because life is good. Yeah.
So good, man. So good. And, I can't wait to get over your part of the world there, and maybe we'll go on a blow up, like whitewater rafting thing first. I don't know.
I'd love to take you.
I'd love to do it, mate. How can people connect with you? Because I know that people will want to. How can people connect? Give us your YouTube, give us your Insta, give us blah blah blah.
Yeah, just look me up at Nick Troutman Kayak. Pretty much anywhere, and you'll find it. My website's Nick Troutman Kayak. But yeah, hit me up. I'm probably most active on Instagram, so hit me up there. If you're interested, please give us a follow on the Art of Awesome podcast. But yeah, hit me up in any of the avenues: my website, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and I'm pretty active in replying to all my messages. I hate when people will send me messages all the time. They'll be like, you'll probably never respond to this, and I'm just like, why do you say that? I respond to all my messages. Like, what? Like, why do you open it up with? Yeah, it is a little bit where I'm just like, come on, dude. Like, anyway.
Yeah. So good. So many golden nuggets in there. Read Risk, read Family, read New Projects, I just love it. Thanks so much for being on the Bucket List Life podcast, mate. You're an absolute inspiration, buddy. Don't stop being you, whatever you do. Don't stop sending it, because I know you've got some bigger waterfalls to conquer. And really being the example for younger crew, as well as us older crew, of how to live your life and how to live your bucket list life, more importantly. So, guys, thanks so much for Nick. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Bucket List Life podcast once again. Like, subscribe on YouTube, comment. We will comment. I will comment on your comments. I will reply. So please tune in next time, after you've done all that, to the next edition of the Bucket List Life podcast. Thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks so much for listening to the Bucket List Life podcast with the world's #1 bucket list expert, Trav Bell. For more great content, go to www.thebucketlistguy.com. We'll see you next time.